Three topics for today. Is capitalism conservative? Politics and how it affects how we view entertainment. What does it mean to be conservative anyway? So, you may not be aware, but the conservative movement right now, the MAGA movement, is a coalition. They are basically a bunch of smaller groups that all don't want the liberal faction to tell everybody what to do. So, tech right, populist right, socially conservative, social conservatives, some libertarians, they all have a different idea of what the government should or shouldn't do. And these ideas don't necessarily agree with each other. One area they don't agree with is capitalism. Does that count as conservative? Oh, wait, I thought conservatives were supposed to always be pro capitalism. No, that's not necessarily the case. First, we need to define capitalism. Are we talking about guilds in the Middle Ages? Are we talking about the beginning corporations in the 1850s? Or are we talking about modern Wall Street corporations where everything is done for stockholders? What do we mean by that? If you mean current Wall Street based capitalism, if that's what you mean, that goes back to like the early 20th century. Is conservative meaning going back in the past 120 years? Is that what conservative means? I think it actually started when is a bit earlier than that. When the corporation begin. I think it had to do with joint stock ownership during the age of sailing. Basically, people would have insurance because ships went down, but you still wanted to do trade. So you could say that's the beginning of capitalism. But again, that's 1750. You're throwing out the entire Middle Ages as an origin point for Western civilization if you go back only that far. The Wall Street stuff. When did Wall Street start? New York Stock Exchange, 1792. Okay, so it goes back a bit, but I think we all agree that the modern form of capitalism is much different. We got these billion-dollar corporations that spread across the entire world. That's not the same thing as like a localized group of people who want to work on something. So I've been getting into some arguments with conservatives about capitalism. And what's really funny is that there's actually a lot of like heavy hitter conservatives with the capital C that have been using phrases like late stage capitalism, problems with companies, yada yada yada. Sargon of Akkad, or Carl Benjamin, as he's now more commonly known, has been talking actually a lot about how capitalism is not the friend of the West. Capitalist arguments, economic arguments, are used oftentimes to motivate and justify mass immigration into Western countries. Um, and they don't seem particularly motivated. They don't seem to do much to conserve anything we have. And this isn't just as far as like environmental reasoning, where it's like, oh, corporations are bad to the environment. What are they conserving? Though that would also be an argument against capitalism. Now, I'm not going to argue against the ability for somebody to trade something or make a good and sell it. That'd be too far from me. But I don't like the idea that, oh, we're conservatives. We need to protect big bankers that all give their money to Democrats. I I don't necessarily agree with that. So I think this is going to be the big question. If the right does win over the next 10 years, like actually win, I think this is going to be the biggest argument that's going to break out. It's going to be between more laissez-faire cap Republicans and more um, skeptical people about capitalism. So it's going to be people like tech right, versus people like Michael Knowles or Tucker Carlson or others of that bent. I don't think we're going to end up in a situation where we have just free capitalists, capitalists versus other capitalists. I think there's always going to be a left and a right. That's never going to go away. What might go away is the current left, which is crazy and suicidal. Um, Politics and entertainment. Another conversation I've been going into is I've been watching a lot of Glitch, and they're all pretty lovable. The people. It doesn't go into the shows that much. Guinevere probably more than any of the other ones, but it is there, and people are like, "Oh, we can't like something that's woke." It's like the thing we don't like about woke is that it puts politics ahead of story and content. It puts politics over quality. If you're eliminating content based on a particular political worldview, are you not just doing the same thing that woke people did to our content? And I'm not saying that in a sense of like, oh, we need to be better than them or something. I do not absolutely do not believe in that. I think we should fight the same way they fight, as long as it's legally. That said, I don't want to like limit my entertainment options to politics and maybe Japanese anime. I don't really want to be limited that far, especially when I like twisty thinking. I like I like some darkness. I like some corruption. And most people do. And like them or not, your Daily Wire is not going to be creating conservative content that's any good. You need a touch of the perverse to make good entertainment, I think. But what happened is that the woke gang basically threw out any idea of competence or anything else in favor of the message. They hired people based on the message. They chose storylines based on the message. They chose everything based on the message. And they kind of did the message a disservice, to be honest. You can write a good woke story, obviously. Like, if you want to go back in history, the prophets of Israel, that's as conservative as you can really get. Basically, went around telling rich people to suck it. That's basically what they did. They went to the government back then or rich people and said, "You're taking advantage of the poor." That goes back to as conservative a basis as you can get. The whole Christian take on taking care of the poor. Like, if we're defining that as woke, then what are we conserving? You can't be against taking care of the poor and being skeptical of rich people and call yourself a conservative. You just can't. It goes back way into the Western canon of what we're trying to conserve. So, but then the other hand, there's an argument for you don't give money to people who hate you. That is fair. Even if it's good content, do you really want to give money to people who hate you? And I think this is where we get into about what is considered within the Overton window. Um, if you expect everybody to agree with you on everything, that's not going to happen. So we need to decide as conservatives what does it mean? What is included within the conservative banner? Like, I think free speech is probably that should be pretty defended. That's a pretty core principle of the West. But does it include, say, celebrating the death of somebody? No. But do we really want to get too close to the edge on that? I don't. There needs to be some striking back. What can be said? That is the Overton window. What can be said and what can't be. People are going to want to be going against the LGBT stuff on this, and they are. I think you can get rid of the trans stuff. I don't think you can get rid of the LGBT stuff. I don't think that that's going to work out for you. People don't like Puritanism. They just don't. Um, I already went into economic principles about What do and not accept? I think being against sex in shows is probably a good bet. I don't go hardcore on it, but like I think there's a limit to how much you should accept there. So yeah, I don't know what the answer is for what entertainment we should and shouldn't watch or support. But I do know I'm going to keep watching Glitch because I enjoy their content. I enjoy their shows. They have something to say that's interesting and shiny. So what does it mean to be conservative? That is a question we have been kind of skating by on basically MAGA about what it means to be conservative because Trump, for all of his faults, represents a lot of what different types of conservatives want and like and respect. And people are like, oh, people are turning against him. Yeah, but that's allowed in our group. We are allowed to disagree with him on stuff. Now, you can't call us fascist. That's not allowed anymore. But you can criticize and you can have opinions and such. But it is a question that's going to have to be answered. Some people would say it's just liberalism, classical liberalism, small government, free minds, free thoughts, free economies, individuals who are just individuals. That developed into the modern left. That's if we go back to that, we're basically just going slightly up higher on the slide that goes down. I don't think that's enough. I'm more partial to Carl Benjamin's idea that we are not atomized individuals. We belong to families and tribes and cities and peoples and nations. We belong to something greater than ourselves. With churches. So we do belong to groups. And if we don't, then people are going to basically grab whatever group they can belong to. And leads to all the stuff we don't like. And that's not going to be sustainable. So I'm inclined to that opinion. I also think that there's some degree of spiritualism that you need to really be a conservative. I'm not saying it has to be Christian conservatism or Jewish conservatism, but you should have some kind of tradition that goes back further than last week. Because again, it will protect you from the mind virus. I think that there is some degree of honor, male and masculine honor, that needs to be part of what conservative means. What does that mean? Don't sleep with a bunch of women. It's wrong. Um, be honorable towards women. Don't be agitate. If you think agitate's conservative, you're not a conservative. It means standing by your bros, being there for them if they need you. It means working reasonably hard on things. It means having discipline and pursuing goals and doing things. Conservatives have a nasty habit of being permanent critics, where we just criticize what other people do. Liberals, for all their problems, do create things, and some conservatives do too. No, don't get me wrong. Some conservatives do create things, but the whole we're going to have endless YouTube channels that criticize what the left does. It's not going to be enough. You don't want to just be a whiny, whinging critic. You have to actually create something on your own. And some of that is maintaining existing institutions like the church or academia or free inquiry or whatever else. Some of it's that. Some of it's like history stuff. What if Altish does a great job with this? Or coming up with new ideas and discussions on Discord boards or whatever. But you need to create something. You have to actually do the thing, whether it be, if you can, getting married, having a family, creating arts, creating music, doing stuff at work that works, like being productive at work, it's not enough to be a critic. I guess that's what I'm saying. It's about belonging to something greater than yourself, maintaining honor, and being creating something. You shall know them by their works. That's a. I'm not sure what book of the Bible that's from. I think it's Paul. And for once, I actually agree with Paul. Anyway, I think that we need to have as a movement. Like right now, we have to fight the good fight and everything. We need to think about what it means to be conservative and how wide we can make that range. Cheers.